Hey there, and welcome to this explainer. I am honestly so thrilled you're here with us. Let's just dive right into this simulation, all right? Today, I'm going to step in as your mentor. Together, we're going to guide your product team through building a brand new productivity app right from the ground up. And we're going to do it using Agile methodologies. Now, we aren't just going to sit here and talk theory, no way. We're going to apply these concepts directly to your very first sprint, so you can see exactly how modern product teams ship updates frequently, learn from their users super fast, and continuously adapt. So here's the million-dollar question, right? How exactly do you build your first app without falling into the trap of a massive delayed launch? Well, we have to start by completely abandoning the old way of building products. In the past, companies relied on these agonizingly long planning cycles that led to, you guessed it, massive delayed launches. The fatal flaw there? User feedback arrived way too late in the game. If your initial assumptions were wrong, you literally just wasted an incredible amount of time, money, and resources. And we are absolutely going to avoid that. To put that into perspective, think about the traditional, or waterfall method. It relies on this super rigid sequence of planning, design, development, testing, and then, finally, launch. Agile development, on the other hand, completely flips the script. By adopting an iterative mindset, your team prevents those massive failures. You'll be building smaller pieces of your productivity app, launching them earlier, learning continuously from actual real-world user data, and then adapting rapidly. Agile reduces all that scary uncertainty, simply because you aren't waiting until the very end to see if people actually want what you're building. Now, to make this work, Agile depends heavily on cross-functional collaboration. It's an absolute game changer. To avoid the team silos and the endless confusion that plagues so many startups, your designers, engineers, and product managers have got to collaborate closely from day one. You can't just have design hand off a file to engineering and walk away. They need to work together continuously to balance fast feature delivery with long-term product quality. Trust me, siloed communication will immediately stop your Agile execution right in its tracks.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit and talk about planning your first sprint.
Everything your team is going to do starts right here with the product backlog. Think of this as the ultimate master list for your productivity app. But, and this is a big but, it is not just a dumping ground for random feature requests. It is a highly prioritized, constantly evolving list. As your mentor, I need you to focus on prioritizing actual user needs and strategic outcomes here. The whole goal is solving user problems, not just shipping a checklist of cool-sounding features. Keeping that list organized is absolutely crucial, and we call that backlog grooming or refinement. Look, before you even think about starting development on your app, your team must regularly reprioritize work based on value, clarify the requirements, and most importantly, break those large, intimidating tasks down into smaller, manageable chunks. Doing this effective backlog refinement ensures your team cleans out outdated ideas and removes any ambiguity before a single line of code is ever written. To keep those chunks of work perfectly focused, Agile teams rely on user stories. Check out this perfect example for our app. As a student, I want to save lessons so I can continue learning later. Agile teams use user stories just like this one to keep the development team completely locked in on the user's end goal and the value they're getting, rather than getting totally bogged down in technical jargon. It immediately connects the engineering work to a real breathing human need. But hey, a story isn't enough on its own. You have to know when it's actually finished. Enter acceptance criteria. For saving a lesson, success means the save button actually works correctly and lessons actually sync across devices, which massively reduces confusion for the engineering team. And this naturally leads us to identify our next specific user story, giving users the ability to remove those saved lessons to clear their queue. The acceptance criteria there might just be that the lesson deletes from local storage and the cloud simultaneously. See how everything just flows logically?
So the sprint is planned out. Let's move on to executing that sprint daily.
Now, Scrum is one of the most popular Agile frameworks out there, mainly because it brings some much-needed structure to the chaos. It organizes work into short development cycles called sprints, which usually last around 1 to 4 weeks. This creates a really nice, predictable progression from planning right through to ongoing daily stand-ups and ending with a review and retrospective. This structure builds continuous momentum. Instead of waiting months for a launch, you are delivering incremental value every single cycle. To keep your team completely aligned and focused during that cycle, you're going to hold daily stand-ups. And listen, these are strictly time-boxed to 15 minutes. No exceptions. Every team member just answers 3 critical questions. What did I complete? What am I working on today? And are there any blockers in my way? This is not a status report for management. It's a rapid coordination meeting for the team to improve visibility and solve problems immediately.
All right, let's take a look at tracking progress and metrics.
You might be wondering, well, how do we measure the actual work required for our user stories? Instead of calculating exact hours, because let's be real, we are all terrible at guessing exactly how long things take, Agile teams use story points. Using story points helps your team estimate the complexity and effort of a task realistically. A larger point value simply means higher complexity. This is vital because it helps you predict your team's capacity, ensuring you avoid overloading your engineers during the sprint.
And those story points feed directly into our broader metrics. We use something called velocity to track how much work your team successfully completes over time, which gives you a great baseline for future sprints. Meanwhile, you'll utilize sprint burndown charts to visually measure if your current sprint is actually on track for success. It's literally a chart burning down to 0. And finally, cycle time tells you exactly how long individual tasks take from start to finish, which is perfect for spotting any frustrating bottlenecks in your workflow.
Now let's quickly touch on Kanban versus Scrum ceremonies. Take a look at the contrast between Scrum and Kanban here. Unlike Scrum's highly structured ceremonies and time-boxed sprints, a Kanban board relies on a continuous flow of work and highly visual task management, which allows for ongoing, flexible prioritization. And you know what? Neither is inherently better. It depends entirely on your team's unique needs. In fact, many highly successful product teams actually combine elements of both approaches to find their perfect workflow rhythm, so it is completely okay to mix methodologies and find what works for you.
Furthermore, we're operating in the AI era now. Your team can dramatically speed up their iteration cycles by integrating modern AI tools directly into your workflow. Whether it's using AI for coding assistance, QA automation, rapid prototyping, or even generating automated documentation, these tools reduce a ton of that manual overhead. This allows your product, design, and engineering teams to focus strictly on solving user problems and delivering actual value.
As our first sprint wraps up, let's talk about retrospectives and avoiding mistakes.
Before we go off and plan the next sprint, we've got to address the pitfalls. You want to avoid the super common Agile mistake of shipping too fast without maintaining quality. That just creates crippling technical debt down the line. Also, please avoid becoming a feature factory that blindly pumps out updates without any strategic focus. Remember, iterative improvements only create vastly better product outcomes than massive launches, provided you conduct honest sprint retrospectives to learn from your mistakes and actually process the early user feedback you receive. Agile without learning, it literally loses all its value. Agile totally transformed modern product development because it isn't just about moving fast blindly. It's about smart iteration. The best teams out there are the ones that adapt based on real feedback. So I'm going to leave you with this final thought as your mentor today. As you look at the data from your very first app launch, how will your team adapt, handle that early user feedback, and apply this mindset to continuously optimize your future workflows? Because ultimately, the success of your product depends entirely on your answer.